What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Zary, and before we get into the video, I just want to remind everybody, if you're under level 15 and you want $10 worth of free stuff, go to your settings, go to use promo code, and type in XMGGift. You do that, you'll get $10 worth of free stuff. It helps support the channel. So if you're under level 15, make sure you're using that promo code XMGGift. Enjoy the video. What is happening, YouTube family? Zary back with Works the First. The time you're seeing this, it's probably Easter or the day after, so I hope everybody had a great Easter if you celebrate it with your family. And we are here to talk 50 through 41, and we're going to jump right into it. Again, if you were wondering how I did this, please go check out the first video, and it'll explain how I did my rankings. But we're going to jump right into number 50, Sergeant Pigwald. Sergeant Pigwald is a character who has grown on me over the course of this game. Still not fantastic. Damage output is absolutely phenomenal. And he has one move here on his Rocket Strike. 300% physical damage to 2 enemies with the lowest health. If this ability kills an enemy, its cooldown is reset. Now, what I like about this is the lowest health, it gets around taunt, it can go through invisible. They can't hide the character from this move. So he can bypass taunt passively, which is sweet. His passive ability, 40% physical damage. Now, he gets that regardless. Now, the second half, he has to be plug and played with goblins, 5% for each living goblin in the party, but still, he gets something from his passive, so I'll take it, right? I don't really care for this lock and load move. He gains Super Shell, which increases damage of the next attack by 2.5. And it's guaranteed to land a critical hit. This effect cannot be prevented or removed using this ability with Super Shell restores 50% of his turn meter. I don't really care for these kind of like ramp up moves. You know, Amara has one. A lot of people have them. It seems to be kind of a staple in this game, but because he does have some glaring needs. I mean, his basic, he does have the synergy with Arno, which is nice. I have replaced Arno in my Goblin Dragon team, and he comes in to assist. If the target is below 75% health, he deals 375 instead, so not a bad basic, but he's very, very slow. Takes him a while to amp up, and his health, he's not as squishy as Old Lore, but he's still squishy. Pigwald growing on me, damage is really the only reason he's this high. But again, if you have him, expect him to be low, because you're kind of torn. If you speed him up, or do you build up that crit damage, crit chance on him so he can do even more damage. Sergeant Pigwald, definitely worth the investment, but I can't see him anything more than 50. Sticking with the goblins, we have Amara. And Amara, now that Thanisa is more available, if you want to call it that, her partnership with her is extremely good. You put her on a burn team, she has some plug and play viability, but the reason she's so lower on this list at 49 is she really needs other people to help her out, and I think some T7s could fix that. She isn't the fastest character in the world, but that's okay. You know, her passive ability, Amara and Thanisa, but it doesn't matter, you can just have Amara gain 5% to their turn meter for each stack of burning or poison on the enemies at the end of their turn, but no more than 75%, so they can't consistently just go. Completely understand that. Third ability, Medium Well, is actually really well done. 340 magic damage to an enemy, plus an extra 60% of magic damage for each stack of burning on the target. Now, T7 here, I upped the damage a little bit. The regular damage, maybe even up this. That could really help her out a lot. She does have an AoE, deals 230 of magic damage to all enemies, and inflicts burning for 2 turns. So she can spread the burning, but this magic damage really needs to come up on an AoE. Definitely easy choice for a tier 7. Inflicts the burning for 2 turns. Maybe you could prolong the effect of burning on the basic on a T7. I think that would be really sweet. You know, because 190, we got to up that damage, but maybe a T8 on the basic to prolong burn or poison That would be really, really cool on a basic ability, tier 7, tier 8 style. But she definitely can crank. You put her in like a Link comp with an Ember, but she needs to spread that burning more, and she needs to be complemented. That's why she's 49. She isn't as bad, I don't think, as people think, because I can run into her at tournaments, and I've seen a gear 12 Amara, and it's tough. She brings the pain, and you know, she can, if she builds up those burns, especially with somebody else dealing out poison, she can hurt you big time. But she does need that someone to complement her. That's why she's 49. 48, Failure. I like Failure a lot, don't get me wrong, and 48 might seem low, but she really, really needs people based on her move kit, and we're taking out that caveat. She needs people to really make her beneficial. Starting with her passes, increases magic damage by 20%. Wonderful. When the battle starts, she gets 1 regeneration for 2 turns for each defender or healer in the party. Generally, you have 1 and 1, so you're getting 2 stacks of regeneration. And then the Singeal part doesn't matter. She has her Neurotoxin move, 230 physical damage to all enemies, inflicts a damage decrease for 2 turns, inflicts slow on goblin enemies for 2 turns. I don't like this caveat of goblin enemies, and 230 on an AoE is pretty low. Very, very low. So definitely want to see that get kind of amped up in this nuking wave that we're seeing. Poison Vine deals 240 magic damage and then change to 2 random enemies. Damage is half for each new enemy struck, so it does 240, 120, and then 60. It does inflict 2 stacks of poison, which is on the main target only. I'd like to see that spread to the additional targets as well, you know, bring up that 50% chance. And then on her basic, deals 180, but deals an additional 20% of magic damage for each stack of regeneration. This is why she falls down the list, because if you put her in, let's say, the elf team right now that consists of Thelaine, Count Dalman, Failure, Titania, and Wonder Lua, there's only 1 defender, so you're getting 1 regeneration at the start of your turn, so you're only doing 200 magic damage on a basic. She needs somebody else to provide more regeneration. If you pair her with a Singeal, that's great. She has great synergy with a Singeal, but at the same time, you need that other person. She does have some liabilities in her stats as well. She isn't abundantly survivable, and she's not the fastest character in the world, so it takes a while to get to her because you really want her to do the damage. You want that crit chance, you want that potency, you want speed, you want damage, a lot to incorporate into her move kit, and if you're not stacking her for a regeneration team, you are sorely lacking the damage, you know. So I mean, her damage is 35, 38 at gear 11 for me, but I have 2 crit chance and a potency set on. But if I stacked her with regeneration team, it gets much higher. She does have plug and play viability as a mage, but she really, really needs something else to bring out her full benefit, so that's why Failure comes in at 48 for me. 47 is Kinley, and I love me some Kinley. He's a very, very good defender, very, very slept on. He has one of the best passive abilities in the game, in my opinion. He recovers 20% of his health at the start of his turn. Easy T7 here, maybe 20% health, 10% shield, or 30% health. Anytime a defender is healing themselves by doing nothing, phenomenal. You know, he does have a leadership, and we really can't get into that, but that is nice. His taunting mechanism, really solid, because most of the time you just see removes 2 buffs, gains taunt, armor increase for 2 turns, recovers 25% health. If Kinley is the last remaining ally, he gains a damage increase, crit chance increase, and a dodge increase for 3 turns. I don't really care for that second part, but at least it's something more. It kind of incorporates that 5-on-1 tag, but maybe a T7 here if he's one of the last 2, something like that would be extremely beneficial. I don't care for this Jade Wave at all. 300% physical damage to an enemy, 50% chance to apply an armor increase to 3 allies for 1 turn. Now the 300 physical damage is great, but you really don't use this very much. It should be a 100% chance, maybe a team-wide buff at a 75% chance, I don't know, something. Or make it an AoE. That would be cool too, like a wave, bringing in the, you know, hitting everybody. That would be kind of cool to see a tank with an AoE, but Jade Wave is kind of really underwhelming. His basic 170, very low. If Kinley has more health than the target, he deals 250 instead. I'm okay with that for a basic. Kinley, when you go from gear 11 to gear 12, his stats increase, but not as much as you see with some of the other tanks like a Kelrin. You know, his physical and magical armor aren't bad. He doesn't take that extraordinary jump at gear 12, which is one of the reasons why he falls to 47 for me. But in the early game, mid-game, even the end of the mid-game, Kinley could be your order tank under a Soleus lead with no problem whatsoever. Just a fantastic early mid-game tank, and still holds his own. In Battlegrounds, you see Kinley used on a panda squad, and because he's a defender, he does have that plug-and-play viability, but Kinley does need a little touch of love to his move kit to kind of make him great, you know, kind of bonkers, Arno, Tromgarish. 46 is Little Baddie. Little Baddie was one of my favorite tanks in the game as this has come down, and she's received some T7 upgrades that just don't make her that solid, because she isn't as survivable as other tanks, and, you know, she does have some good mechanics. Her passive ability increases, survives the fatal blow. At T8, she gets 100% max health and 20% shield equal to 100% of her max health, and then restores 20% health. Still only once per battle. I was hoping maybe they'd make that twice on a T8. That would have been really cool. This move here is nice, reduces the initial cooldown by 1, but the cooldown's so high on it, and there's only a 50% shot. Really would have liked this to go on to 75 on that tier 7. You know, physical damage, you know, she's not there to do physical damage. Her shield throw at tier 7 reduces the initial cooldown and the max cooldown, so she can taunt right away now. Pretty solid, but, you know, only removes 1 buff. And at this point in the game, we're sorely lacking dispellers. I really would have liked that to see the 2 buffs, because at this point it's like taking a BB gun to a tank. Multiple people are getting, they taunt and do something else. Traumgar taunts counter, Titania taunts counter, Kiri taunts, and I think it's a tenacity increase. Arno is an armor increase and a taunt, I think, so you could easily dispel the wrong thing. Really would have liked to see that taken to a tier 7, or to 2 on a tier 7. And, you know, here I'm okay with it. 25% decrease a turn meter on a basic at 100% shot on a tier 7. Very beneficial because she can counter underneath a Soleus lead. But she, like I said, she just doesn't seem as survivable, and she wasn't what she once was. Definitely want to get Little Baddie to run under that Soleus lead 100%. But she, in my mind, it was her and Traumgar for the #1 defender in the game, and it's not even close anymore. She just hasn't aged well to keep up with the game as it's progressed with these heavy damage dealers. So she has to fall on my list, and I think it's a good spot where she's at 46. 45 is Fao, and Fao, with her T7 abilities, has become more relevant. She is one of the characters that is on my list to get to gear 11. She incorporated the burning synergy. She has her grace ability, which we'll go over, but she has some plug and play viability outside of the panda faction. She still is really slow. She still is not survivable, but passive ability, 30% physical damage, so she's going to get that no matter who you pair her with, but if she's paired with Panda, she gets 5% more. Deals 10% more damage against burning enemies. Critical hits inflict burning for 1 turn if there's a living allied Panda mage, so that's kind of a huge caveat, but it's really her grace ability that people plug and play her. gains a dodge increase and a cheat death and applies it to 4 allies for 2 turns. Spreading a cheat death around the battlefield is absolutely phenomenal, and it really increases her survivability. This move, I really just wish it was an AoE. Critical hits decrease the target turn meter by 20%. Okay, you know, at tier 8, it should be another target in here. It's still only, it's a 25% decrease of turn meter. Not a huge fan. Basic isn't bad though. She recovers 25% turn meter. If this ability lands a critical hit, she recovers 25%. So on her basic, she can put up 50% turn meter back to herself. If you can keep her alive, and that cheat death on the tier 7 does help on the Grace ability, one of the better T7 she owns. This is probably the only one I'd really put it on. You know, because here, not bad. You're only getting 5% more physical damage. Not the end of the world, but this one makes a very, very big difference, her Grace ability, and that's really what makes her plug and play viable. And at 45, I think it's a fair spot for her, for sure. She can be plug and played. You're going to use her maybe in arena earlier in the game. Adding that burn synergy really makes her pair well with the Embers of the World or a burn composition. So, Foul, I think it's in a good spot. The second half piggy to grace our list is Baron Rel, coming in at 44, I think? Yeah, 44. And Baron Rel, they don't jump off the page to do anything spectacular. They need a crap ton of potency, so it kind of limits your ruining options. Starting with their passive, if they don't have Oink, they gain a 50% chance to reduce damage taken from an enemy attack by 90%. And receive Oink. They lose Oink at the end of their turn. If Centurion are on the battlefield, they get a haste and a tenacity increase. The thing with half pigs is they put out so many buffs all over the battlefield. This, like I said earlier, this game is sorely lacking dispels, and it really needs them desperately. Here on Oinko Raging, applies a damage increase to all allies. Huge. Increases their plug and play viability, but then applies potency increase and a crit damage increase to half pigs and half pig minions. So, and then if set and turn are on the battlefield, right? They do have an AoE here. Oink, 75% chance to inflict slow. No Oink, 75% chance to inflict bleeding. So it does increase their plug and play viability. I played around with him and the dragon team to try to apply that slow. The basic ability, they can put daze on an enemy for 2 turns, and no Oink, they restore 20% of their turn meter. Their kit is not that bad, and they do have some plug and play viability, but to really, really reap the benefits of their full move kit, you have to pair them with half pigs or half pig minions, such as a Gore Ram, right? To really maximize their potential, and that's why they fall down the list a little bit here. And I don't like how much potency they need. I mean, every single move they seem to want to put on a debuff, and you got to crank up the potency. They have very low potency to start, so you're kind of hamstrung there. So Baron Rel, I think this is a fair spot for them. 43, Master Duo. Now Master Duo, his T7s make him a beast, absolute beast, but do you really want to sink that many T7s into Master Duo? Now, he is the Raid King. He is immune to blindness. Garrett counter. I'm experimenting with him versus Garrett's, and it has been very successful. And he can counterattack invisible enemies, so that is also nice. Increases accuracy by 15%, an additional 5% for each living panda in the party. But it's only 5%, so I'm okay with that caveat. If the chance to hit the enemy is more than 100%, he gains a damage increase, equal to the extra hit chance. That's really hard to figure out. Not a big fan of that. Here, gains critical chance increase, crit damage increase, and counterattack for 3 turns. Recovers 35% of his health and 65% turn meter. Gains shield equal to 100% of his health healed above the maximum. This is awesome because one of my big gripes for Master Duo was how unsurvivable he was. And he is worth it now. if you want to put in those T7s. Then he has an AoE now. If all enemies receive damage, gain a damage increase and an accuracy increase for 2 turns. Fantastic. Then his basic is very good because of that counter. 310 physical damage on a tier 7. And if you take it up to tier 8, it's 370. And then if the target is inflicted by slow, you reduce their turn meter by 30%. You inflict slow for 2 turns at tier 8. And then you remove invisibility and a dodge increase from the target. Huge. But he's very, very dependent on getting those T7s on. He can, as Mobile Gamer says, he can wreck nerds when he gets those tier 7s. Just an absolute beast. At gear 11, he's still usable for that slow, but he nearly doesn't do the damage he did at tier 8. And the fact that he can't apply the slow on 100% clip brings him down the list a little bit. Still a raid machine, but Master Duo climbing my list, but he's a middle tier character for me, and that's exactly where I have him ranked. 42, the oldie but goodie Puncher Face. Now, Puncher Face is Puncher Face. He hasn't changed much. He's still got his original skin, and he's usable. He still is usable to this day because of his Earthquake ability, I think it's called. Yep. He deals 260 physical damage and then applies taunt. So you got to get a little potency on this guy. You can make him extremely fast because he gives himself 30% speed at a tier 7. Or 30 speed. That is just huge. 20 speed at tier 6. Right here, 480 physical damage and a 75% chance to gain haste. At tier 8, gains haste for 2 turns and a damage increase for 1, 560 physical damage. Amazing. Deals 280 physical damage to an enemy, 80% chance to recover 25% turn meter on a basic. His kit isn't bad, can be put with anybody. There's no caveat saying he has to be with demons, or with clans, or with order. He's good against this team, he's good against that team. Problem with Puncher Face is, he's still not very survivable. To get his damage really up high, you sacrifice a lot of speed. If you put this up to a tier 7 and give him 30 speed, okay. But to put him in a damage set would be fantastic, because then you could really reap the benefits. People use him for his Earthquake ability, and that's why he's as high as he is, because he can get you around those taunts, let you attack who you want to attack. Does have survivability issues. Puncher Face, I think this is a perfect spot for Puncher Face, and he can benefit you in a lot of different ways because he has 0 caveats in his move kit. None. Here we go with 41, Tool. Tool is my least favorite dwarf, but I have him above Raleigh because he has more plug and play viability. And again, not very survivable, but he gains a potency increase for every 2 charge, gains 40% dodge if afflicted by invisibility. If he takes no damage during the turn, at the start of his next turn, he recovers 30% charge. AoEs kill the dwarf team. I've already talked about this at length, but that is nice that he can recover his own charge. This Mountain Fog, I like it because he attacks 2 enemies, so he's doing something. If the target is afflicted by bleeding or an armor decrease, restores 30% charge, and then he gets invisible. I like that. I like how he's doing something, just not gaining invisible. This move is my favorite move for him, is Serious Injury. Attacks the enemy 2 times, 260 each time, consumes 20% charge. For every 4% charge consumed, he has a chance of putting on a bleeding. If both attacks hit, he inflicts bleeding and ability block for 2 turns, so you just want to stack some potency on the guy. He has very good starting potency to begin with. And then on his basic ability, he attacks an enemy 2 times, 160, consumes 20% charge, and has a 5% chance for each time its charge is consumed to inflict an armor decrease for 2 turns. If the target is inflicted by an armor decrease, the second attack is heal block. Huge. Very good debuffs into his move kit. It doesn't seem to work like you want it to work, but the fact is he can be put in a bleed team. He could be your heal blocker. He could easily be your debuff person for your squad. But he does have survivability issues. You want him to go fast, and his speed is just a rogue. 140s, 150s, so you gotta kind of crank up the speed so his damage kind of takes a hit. It's hard to get him fast and to do damage and to stick his debuffs. So he's kind of a little jumbled mess. My least favorite dwarf, but definitely can do some things. 41 tool. So there it is, my YouTube family. There is my list. We are creeping through this thing, and we just hit 50 through 41. So let me know what you think of the tier list so far. Let me know if you disagree with anybody I have listed in this video. And if you are just finding me for the first time, you like what you're seeing, please consider hitting that subscribe button. You can always unsubscribe later if you don't like the content you see. With that being said, my XMG family members out there, I love you. See you in the next one. I'm out.